Hello, friends. I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is fantastic. And I want to continue talking a little bit about Mexico. I know this might be dragging on, but um, Chris brought up some things, and I meant to mention there were some things that were off or things that went wrong during the trip that I wanted to talk about. But I thought I would leave those for something like this, where we can just talk about the things that were weird, the things that happened that were off. Chris mentioned that he saw a lot of cartel in Tulum, like as if they were monitoring businesses. And I guess I saw one person who I was pretty sure was, I don't know about in the car, but he had a lot of tattoos and he looked hardened. But he was also super friendly and nice, and it just seemed like he was a good guy. So I didn't see any of the security type stuff. In fact, most of the shops just had one person. That was about it. We went to we went there just kind of with the intention to do a little bit of shopping. My friend didn't. He wanted to buy some clothing there because he heard it was inexpensive. He bought some luggage there, that sort of stuff. So we just kind of went downtown for that. But we did a whole lot of shopping right outside of our resort. So the resort had a little setup they called the Hacienda. It had a different name, like La Hacienda del Esmeralda or something like that. De Esmeralda, I don't know why I said del. But so it was like a hacienda, but much bigger than an actual hacienda, big courtyard. And out there, they had a whole lot of shops. They had a lot of tent shops on the sidewalk. They had shops in the hacienda, and then they also did music and stuff out there at night until like 2 a.m. But we never went out there, so I don't know what was going on. So one of the quirks about that experience of shopping, me and my kids, we really like looking at all the little trinkets and stuff. And say there's 50 booths out there, 48 of them are selling the exact same stuff. It's almost like they all buy their same stuff from the same suppliers. None of it is really made locally. It's all, maybe it is Mexican, made in Mexico type stuff. Lots of pottery, lots of Mayan masks and stuff like that. But it's all just generic stuff. It doesn't really amount to much. But I still enjoy looking at it all. And I was looking for a few things. I had some ideas of what I wanted, and I found the things that I wanted by browsing these shops that were just full of the same stuff over and over. And the interesting part of that experience, if you've never done it, this was my second time. Last year we did Bahamas, and it was the same sort of situation, just tent shops full of the same stuff. And everybody's happy to see you and wants to talk about the stuff that they sell, how their grandfather makes it, and it's all BS. You know it's all BS, but you go along with it, and you know you're overpaying for everything. That's okay. It's part of the experience, right? So, in those shops in Mexico, I saw. I mean, for one, I bought a straw hat. I think I showed it on one of the pictures yesterday. I wanted that. I wanted a breathable sun hat, so I didn't get sunburnt. I purchased one of those. There was a lot of those. There was a lot of pipes and painted skulls. Lots of the. I don't know what I'm sure that they have a name for that decor, but that death. There's a lot of that, and so a lot of painted skulls. Um, Spoon rests. I ended up buying a spoon rest for myself just as a little keepsake. And statues, lots of statues. So one of the things that intrigued me was there was a lot of pottery type stuff, bowls and stuff, but there was also a lot of pottery. There was like porcelain knockoff pop vinyls, literally like a pop. Somebody just copied a pop vinyl in porcelain. That was a very strange thing. There was also a whole lot of Homer Simpson dressed up as Marvel characters. Okay, I don't know who's buying this stuff, but whatever. But the one that really got me, every single place that I went to had some version of the Predator from the movies like in Mayan or in Aztec like warrior gear. I have like, who is buying that? Who goes down there and sees that and goes, "Oh, this is like, this must be some Aztec thing, you know, or some Mayan thing." It's no. The funniest one, and I didn't get a picture. I tried to find pictures. I took lots of pictures of the statues of the predator, but the funniest one was of quite a few places had the predator riding on a motorcycle that was a xenomorph from Aliens. Like, who is that for exactly? Who's buying this? Who goes to Mexico to buy these things? But we did. So we found a lot of interesting things. Ended up buying a few things. Um, he asked also how bad the seaweed was. So we talked about hanging out on the beach. The first couple of days, the seaweed was pretty thick. But they got it cleaned up pretty. Like, there was guys with carts and rakes scraping. The tide was going out, I believe, on Monday and Tuesday, and they ended up collecting most of that. So I went snorkeling on Friday, and there was no seaweed. Like, I mean, just little tiny chunks, like nothing major. And so I did a lot of snorkeling and didn't encounter any. So it got cleaned up pretty quickly, but it was really thick. Like, the first couple of days, I don't know if you could see it in the video that I rolled yesterday. I might try to roll it here again if I remember. The waves were just brown from seaweed for the first 2 days or so. But it got cleaned up and it was really pretty after that. So, this was also my first time being in a country where English was not their native language as a citizen. I did a little bit of stuff in the military, but I only interacted with military people, so I didn't get to experience what it was like to be a foreigner, like for realsies. This was my first time feeling like a foreigner. When last year we went to the Bahamas, they just speak English. It's a very different version of English, but it felt like I just went to, another state. I'm like, hey, let's hang out. In this particular instance, this is my first time being really a foreigner. Like, I don't understand the language. There was definitely language barriers with some of the people at the resort. I tried to learn Spanish for years, and I kind of get some of it. I can order food and stuff in Spanish, but I'm not speaking daily Spanish. I had a coworker who taught me Spanish, and so I could kind of squeak along. A few times I ordered some things. I'd switch to Spanish real quick because the guy couldn't understand what I was saying. So, that worked out. But for the most part, this was my first experience being like not second class, but second place in the language grouping. Like, they say something to you in Spanish first and then switch to English. Like, we went to shows and it was in Spanish and then English. So that was a very interesting experience. It was also very interesting to see that there was a whole lot of Spanish-speaking people vacationing at this resort, which I guess makes perfect sense, I guarantee you that Mexicans from the West Coast or whatever, like they probably go over there and like it's a good vacation spot for them too. And I think actual people from Spain vacation there. So there was a whole lot of Spanish-speaking people. But other than that, like there wasn't the seaweed. Yeah, I guess was kind of an issue, but most people just swam in the pool. It wasn't an issue by the time I went snorkeling. I mentioned yesterday there was some litter, but it wasn't terrible. The service, the Collectivo thing I talked about yesterday was amazing, despite the fact that we were the only white people in a van full of locals. Like, no tourists were riding the Collectivo, but it was $2. Like, it was a half-hour drive to Tulum, 20-minute drive to Tulum. It cost me $2, whereas a taxi would have cost me like 40. So it felt, it was, there wasn't a whole lot. The weather was my biggest complaint. However, something that I haven't mentioned up until this point is on Monday, my brother-in-law lost his house. So we got the call. He lived in a townhouse. He owned his townhouse. I mean, I guess he still does. And his neighbor's townhouse burned to the ground. He was a part of a unit of 5, and 3 of them are completely lost. His didn't burn so much. His roof burned some. But they tore his roof off and just poked holes in his walls and then flooded his house it's a complete loss, right? That happened on Monday, and that was horrific. Like, that was really tough on all of us for the whole rest of the week. Tuesday we did the Tulum trip, and it was like there for a while. It was, we thought maybe he was going to go home, maybe my mother-in-law was going to go with him and try to help figure things out. But the reality of the situation was there's really nothing you can do when that happens. Like going home, he doesn't have a home to go to. They, his parents, both sets of his parents, because he's Malia's half brother, live like Moundsville, Bel Air, Ohio. Like they're an hour and a half away. So if he was coming back here to take care of his house, he'd have to get a hotel and stay. And like, there's really nothing you can do at that point, especially since everybody who could help you, like gather and haul stuff, is in Mexico right now. Like everybody who was going to help, we were already together. So they ended up staying, and we ended up, I think, enjoying the rest of the week together. But that was definitely a dark cloud over the trip. But it was, in the end, we came home on Saturday. We all went on Sunday to help him pull out anything that he could, anything that, was worth salvaging, and packaged it up. And he's been talking about moving back home for a while. I think he will after that. But that was definitely a trying time on the trip. Food was great. We didn't drink the water. We drank lots of bottled water. The resort gave us lots of bottled water. I'll tell you the one other thing. This is lighten the mood a little bit before we go. They spoke about this mini bar in our rooms. They were like, "You're gonna have a mini bar. We stock it once a day. You're gonna have like 3 people told us about the mini bar. Like the mini bar will get stocked." So we were excited for the mini bar because this was an all-inclusive resort. It was, the bars were all over the place, so you could just go get a drink whenever you wanted. But it was the thought of being able to just, stay in my room if I wanted to, have a couple drinks, was great. We get to the room, we open up the fridge, and this is what was in it. The mini bar was literally 2 beer and 3 cans of soda, or about 2 bottles in a can. That was it. And they didn't. It's not like they added. If you didn't drink it, they didn't put more in. So that was all you could have for that day in your mini bar. That was pretty funny. Yeah, great trip. Trying to think if there was other things that made me feel like an outsider. It's weird feeling like an outsider when you haven't been one your whole life. I walk around this world with a whole lot of privilege, and I recognize that, as a tall white man who I guess I'm not hideously ugly. I've never considered myself to be attractive, but I do get treated differently, and I recognize that I get treated differently. And so it was very weird to be in a place where I was the outsider, I was the different one, and I liked it, honestly. I enjoy being put out and figuring things out. So, you have any other questions? We still got 2 days left in the week. I don't want to keep harking on Mexico forever, but I think there's a decent amount of content there. So ask me questions. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is recursive. Did we already do I feel like we already did these words. It's an adjective pertaining to a process in which each step makes use of the results of the earlier steps. The study of mathematics is a recursive learning experience. Recursive, R-E-C-U-R-S-I-V-E. The only reason I say that is because I definitely remember talking about recursion in programming. I feel like we've already covered that word. I don't know. I might have accidentally not turned the page or something.